At the protest that Billy got to way too late in order to actually protest, and I really wish you had been across the street protesting the protest.
Pro water slides.
Yes, pro anarchy. I wish you had done that. I feel like we failed in not exercising.
I don't think Ron would have appreciated that much.
He hated that segment.
But it would have been funny, and it's what we should have done. And I feel like we erred in not doing that.
Such a good idea.
It is a perfect idea, and I want you to take it up with Ron. But at that protest, I stuck out my hand, and I got something that Jessica is now telling me is the grandpa. It is a common thing with old people. I went to shake hands with somebody, and the way an old person shook hands with me caught me off guard, sort of squeezed my fingers, and really took control of the situation. Left me. I'm a relatively firm handshaker, but got in there so aggressively that neutered me and made me feel less confident the remainder of the conversation because of how aggressive I got caught in what Jessica was calling the grandpa shake.
It's a very classic grandpa move, and one that I actually noticed in that Jim Irsay video when he's holding the Indianapolis Colts head coach, Stugotz, what's his name?
Shane Steichen?
Yeah. We'll go with that.
Okay.
He's holding his hand and he won't let go. That's something that grandpas around the world have been doing for centuries. They grab your hand and then they just squeeze the out of it. Actually, babies do it too. It's a grandpa-baby move, tandem. Yeah. They have that in common. They grab your hand and they don't let go. And you try to finish the handshake. Maybe you give them a pat on the back. Maybe you try to bring them in for a hug. But they don't let go of the hand.
Right. But what are babies doing? Babies, it's just a panicked grip of an appendage. They don't know what they're doing.
Mike.
What are the grandparents doing?
This is what babies do. Yeah. They hold the finger and they don't let go. Grandparents do the handshake where they grab the whole hand and then they take it and they won't let go. Maybe it'll be 3 fingers that they squeeze, but they will not let go of the hand. Your hands are freezing.
But they're cagey vets, grandparents, and they know you're trying to sprint away from the conversation, and they're no, the conversation ends when I end the conversation.
That's exactly right. They want your attention. They want to command your attention. They want to pull you in. They want to talk really close to your ear, and they want to squeeze the out of your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that they won't just shake the correct hand, right? I put my right hand out to shake your hand, shake the right hand. They might grab the top of my right hand with their left hand to then squeeze fingers and make sure you're not going anywhere.
Right.
Up until about the age of 5 and then basically after 60.
And arthritis.
Right.
Mike Ryan, what do you mean and arthritis?
Well, that has something to do with it.
You'd think
he does play a lot of
plays
a lot of guitars.
You'd think it'd be the opposite, but actually, the grip strength of a grandfather probably better than Kenny Pickett.
Yeah.
Well, yep.
CJ Stroud yesterday has already thrown more touchdown passes than Kenny Pickett, career touchdown.
Yeah, that was
passes.
going viral on Twitter. I didn't like that. Stop tweeting that. Do not retweet that.
But I mean,
if you see it, do not tag me in that. Stop tagging me in that tweet.
He's having the greatest rookie season of any quarterback to ever play in the NFL.
And the Steelers are allergic to scoring touchdowns.
Not quite, but what he has done early is he seems remarkably confident back there doing a difficult thing, and he took what was going to be Baker Mayfield's signature comeback moment. God almighty, Tampa Bay doesn't have any reason. Baker Mayfield was on the scrap heap. He was headed toward backup quarterback. He was headed toward Sam Darnold land. And he had 15 seconds yesterday of the coolest comeback story in a game that they shouldn't have won, and it was taken from him by a young star. So, guys, we talked about Baker Mayfield when he was in Cleveland and how they were playing win now, and he was playing through injuries and trying to play. As we talk about Brock Purdy trying to play through injuries, what it looks like, Joe Burrow trying to play through injuries, what it can look like. I don't know what the hell's going on with Deshaun Watson and injuries, but how these guys get physically broken halfway. What are you doing, Jessica? What's happening here?
It's a little cold in here today.
That's an absurd jacket for this climate.
If you're not watching it, I have a little bit of a warm and fuzzy snuggie situation on that. Mike, honestly, you might need one of these because your hands are frigid. When I did my little grandpa bit,
cold,
icy.
But I'm a blue blood, so I'm okay.
Yeah. I was also saying, Dan, last week I got the Browns in the bucket of death, and I put them back because I was told that morning. I said, Josh Dobbs got traded to the Vikings, and everyone was like, yeah. And I was like, who's going to start for the Cardinals? And like the entire room was like, Kyler Murray's back, Kyler Murray. Everyone yelled Kyler Murray at me like I'm an idiot for not knowing that. Guess what? He didn't start. So I was thinking, okay, maybe if Kyler Murray's back, like the Browns-Cardinals game, it might be a little bit more interesting. So I put the Browns back and got the Texans. And yesterday I'm sitting on my flight, white-knuckling it in the middle seat, watching the end of that Texans game because, Dan, I am nearly undefeated this year in Bucket of Death. I have one loss. Willow also has one loss. We're tied. But I'm going to get that prize at the end of the year and the Against the Spread prize.
There is no prize for Bucket of Death, but there is a prize for Against the Spread.
Congratulations.
And I picked Clemson last week.
One of the things, I don't know if it can be talked about enough, right? There are all sorts of weird discrepancies, Stugotz, in that sport. We'll obsess about the one call that is the difference between a team being 4-5 and 5-4, but we'll give 60 yards in penalty yardage on a pass interference. There's all sorts of strange, arbitrary stuff in that sport on how we do the measurements. But yesterday, C.J. Stroud and all of his heroics were almost undone by, in a multi-billion-dollar sport, the fact that you can't just have another person who kicks football somewhere at the stadium or around the stadium. We hired a cameraman in Germany to follow around Juju and Chris Cody. You can't hire a professional kicker so that you don't have...
You think kickers grow on trees?
Well, I'm just saying that the silliness of, if you're going to make these games be decided by nothing, be decided every weekend by you're throwing into an end zone at the end, and it's the difference between everyone laughing at Dallas or not laughing at Dallas. It's the difference between us saying Philadelphia is clearly the best team in the league. No, I doubt them now. They lost at home to the Cowboys. At the very least, can I have a competent kicker out there? Like, if the games are going to be decided by 1 and 2 points, can we put something on the roster that allows for, I'm not going to get total incompetence. I'm not all of a sudden going to be the Texans and spend the rest of the game going for 2 or sending my running back out to kick because it's stupid. Like, just put an emergency kicker the same way you do with an ambulance on the sideline. Just there's an emergency. Both teams can use it. Both teams can use it.
Just there?
Just somebody who's there so we don't have
Feely just comes down.
Just somebody. Jay Feely.
Designated
Jay
kicker.
Feely in a suit. The former kickers. All the Zendejas family. You got to use him.
Those guys are money, though. That's not fair.
I'm just saying, somebody.
One of the craziest things right now in the NFL that's happening is the Cowboys kicker went to Notre Dame but played soccer. I actually knew him in college. He was on the soccer team, won a national championship, then played in the USL, I think, and like is a data analyst or something. And then he tried out for the Cowboys, made the team, and now he's broken the record for rookies with the most made field goal attempts to start their career. It's absolutely crazy. Like, you can't find good kickers anywhere, but when you do, like, they're not even kickers anymore.
You find them in data processing.
It's just wild.
Am I the only one with this? Like, does anyone care? These games, we are hyper-analyzing and putting under a microscope every measurement, every replay. I'm startled every Sunday. How do they have every camera angle for that ball that's an inch off the ground? How many cameras are at that thing? Do you know how hard it is to have every camera angle? But at the end, never mind. There's going to be a kicker here and he doesn't kick. Hasn't kicked since his high school. Let's decide it this way. C.J. Stroud, hey, you possibly lose because the running back has to kick.
It's crazy that they decide with kickers that are actually normal kickers that are being paid to kick. It's insane that those guys are deciding this game after all the physicality that we were just talking about at the goal line, and yet now we're just bringing guys out of data analysts.
Hell are we doing?
I lost a bet because they didn't have a kicker.
As we discussed over the past couple of weeks, Dan, the Michigan sign-stealing saga has just been a slow trickle of news like every day for 2 weeks. It's quite remarkable. But the latest report from Pete Thamel is that we should not expect any action by the Big Ten on potentially suspending Jim Harbaugh for at least 48 hours. So TBD, another insane story might come out in the next 48 hours, but it won't be a notice of a suspension, according to Pete Thamel, because if you heard last week, after we were done recording for the week, there was a call with the Big Ten coaches and the Big Ten commissioner in which the Big Ten coaches were very, very mad at Michigan, and they want the Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, to do something about it. They want him to punish Michigan in some way, and Michigan is saying now, if you do that, we are not going to take it laying down. We are going to fight you. So it is just getting very, very juicy. As Michigan's season has finally started, they are playing Penn State this week. The preseason is over for Michigan. They will have an actual top 10 opponent that they're playing. Penn State coming off a huge win against Maryland. Michigan coming off of 8 weeks of a pretty uninspiring schedule in the Big Ten and in their non-conference. So this is a big weekend. There's potential for news in 48 hours, but right now nothing is happening.
I saw that Ryan Day is going to prison and might get the death penalty.
What?
Is that true?
It's very possible. Yes. Well, there is rumors. I don't even know if this is an official report that Ohio State may be behind the initial probe that began this whole thing. But it's hard because there's so much news trickling in now about all of these things, and Connor Stalions might have been at the Central Michigan game. Connor Stalions also, I should add, resigned from Michigan over the weekend. At first, it was reported that he was let go. And then it was reported that it was more of a voluntary resignation situation.
We only reported the lasers in the sunglasses portion of that story.
Which also that may have been photoshopped. I really don't. I don't know what's happening anymore. It is so hard to tell
what's real and what's not.
Who's doing journalism
it is,
and who's not.
If
it's not written in an article by Pete Thamel or a couple other college football reporters, I'm I don't know.
Well,
I don't know if this
step
glasses thing is real.
Another step that has been taken, and you guys help me with the framing on this, because Michigan's president, once you get the presidents involved, Stugotz, I've told you these commissioners and stuff, they're foofs, so they can be pushed around by a bunch of tough coaches. James Franklin can get out on a Zoom and just run a commissioner off the road because these are powerful, king-making positions where they're responsible for these giant economies. And so the idea of football coaches governing the morality of what should happen to Jim Harbaugh now invites the university president of Michigan to say, hey, due process. And I'm wondering, does the Michigan president just have to protect the football program? Because it's a beast. It's a monster. And whether it's under attack or not under attack, or whether it's cheating or cheating the kind that all teams do, they got to protect the economy of Michigan football because that looks like a playoff team. And we do understand what we're watching. Right now, it's greed, it's corruption, it's power spending money, it's buying players. And at the top of it is a school in Michigan that got good because Jim Harbaugh, after Stugotz spent years chasing Jim Harbaugh around, you're not as good as Ohio State. Now they are.
He hasn't been.
But now they are.
Right.
And now they are. And isn't the president incentivized to just protect that at all costs, even as they rescind the long-term offer? Is that what you're telling me in the framing? Because I was surprised to see the president of the university in the middle of a cheating scandal shout due process, even though it's the most obvious thing in the world to shout. But I didn't think Harbaugh would have many supporters given the reporting around this.
No, he has tons of supporters. Michigan fans are not going along with any of this. They have his back. This university, it appears, has his back. They are not going to go along with anything that the Big Ten decides. Like you said, the thing at stake here is playoff appearance money. If the Big Ten is able to get two teams in, Ohio State and Michigan, which seems like it could happen, they don't want to ruin the chances of getting that money, and they also don't want to piss off one of their biggest brands. It's a really, really hard position to be in if you're the Big Ten commissioner. It's why he makes a lot of money, because now he has a pretty big decision to make, because if you piss off Michigan fans, that is a really passionate fan base. It is one of the most powerful head coaches in the sport, but at the same time you have a dozen other head coaches that are publicly saying now, hey, this is not fair. This isn't fair to our players. And we think that this goes well beyond the scope of anything that any other team is doing in the sport to steal signs.
It shouldn't surprise me the way that the Michigan fan base is reacting to this. As someone with a very active persecution complex of their own, I recognize some of the moves. I'm really struggling to find out why Ohio State being behind the initial probe would matter, because it doesn't change what they did. But everyone's saying, well, they hacked, and that's a form of cheating too. At some point, don't you have to kind of look in the mirror and say, well, he's dressed up in costume as a Central Michigan staffer, that this is very clearly, we can all agree, beyond whatever line of gamesmanship might come with trying to steal signs. But there is none of that. It is full force offensive, and Ryan Day is going to jail possibly. It's just an odd reaction. It can be true that, yeah, we got caught cheating, but that it's unfair. Everyone does it. That should be the defense. But Ryan Day's going to jail seems weird.
It's great.
Are they just trying to butt her emails Ryan Day? Is that essentially what's happening here?
I'm with Mike Ryan on the idea, Stugotz, that the cartoonish nature of this, I think Michigan fans should, Mike, lean into the entirety of, that's right.
We cheated and what?
No, not just we cheated and what. We cheated by putting someone in a trench coat and mustache disguise. We cheated with a costume. It wasn't serious cheating. We were going for the lane of funny cheating. Nobody would do it like this, where we've got someone in an active disguise, whether they're lasers coming out of the sunglasses or not. We've got someone on the Central Michigan sidelines where no person who traffics in college football information will ever be found throughout the history. Is it Chippewa football of Central Michigan football?
Wow.
Oh yeah, the Chippewas.
The Chips.
Dan Lefevre had some teams.
Yeah, Dan Lefevre was a legend. I mean, the other fun part of this is that like message board, especially like Michigan's message board, which is huge, is like a big central part of the fan reaction to it, and like Michigan fans writing on their message boards that they've heard rumors about this and this happening, and like it just keeps getting more and more absurd, and it's that part of it is very silly and funny. But yes, Michigan fans, like I am a dear friend of a Michigan fan who is listening to this podcast at this very moment, who has professed to me that this is a witch hunt. This is this is what Jeremy said. It's a butter emails with Ryan Day. It's a witch hunt. All of this, like none of this happened. But they also keep moving the goalposts back and forth. They're like, well, maybe we cheated, but everyone cheats. It's legal. And then they're like, well, maybe we cheated, but everyone else like did this, and this, and like they keep changing the story to defend themselves as more information keeps coming out, and it's just fascinating.
I mean, at a certain point, I think the Athletic report that has photos of him dressed as a Central Michigan staffer should be the tipping point.
But Jessica doesn't
where
trust
there's a couple
it.
of
We don't know
voices.
that's him for sure.
Jessica doesn't trust it. She doesn't trust any
Not
of the
Pete
reporting.
Thamel.
It's in the
Right.
Athletic.
It's not
I trust
Thamel.
it.
And
They have good editors.
I understand
there.
where Michigan is coming from, because the strategy would be fight like hell, because whatever's coming our way, they're coming for this season. And this season can be special. We can make billions off of this season. Like, they can take banners away from us, or they can make us forfeit wins in the future.
Just do it next season.
We need those ticket sales. We need those merch sales. We need that money from the college football playoff coming in here this season. So be as insane as possible with your defense, lacking as much self-awareness as possible, because that's going to be our strategy here. At that point, I get it, but if I were a Michigan fan, like if there were a Miami staffer dressed up as an FAU staffer trying to get some inside information, I'd be like, ooh, that's a bad look. I can't defend that.
It's a great look.
I can't defend that. I've never seen cheating quite like that.
Genuinely, like if this happened to Notre Dame, I feel like I'd be a little pissed at the coaching staff, but like publicly, maybe I'd try to play it down, and maybe that's what's happening here with the Michigan fan like hive mind. I don't really know. The thing that is crazy though is that like they've made the playoff now twice, but this is the year where it seems like everything's coming together. They had the easier schedule at the beginning of the season. They've been blowing out opponents. J.J. McCarthy, I think, has the best Heisman odds right now.
I feel bad for him, because I think
the players are very good, and like,
I think it's gonna land on his shoulders. That the voters will say, all right, not on our watch.
You cheated.
All of this is coming together at a time where winning the national championship for Michigan is very doable this season, where I would not have said that the last couple of years. Like they got boat raced by TCU last year in that crazy semifinal game. And the year before against Georgia, they did not have much of a fight in them. But this year, I think, is the year where all of these things are coming together, and now this happens.
But how much is that because of the cheating?
That's a great question.
There's circumstantial
Guys, they're
evidence.
beating these teams by 40 points. I mean,
I mean,
because
they
of
probably don't
cheating?
need the cheating to beat Purdue. I agree with you.
Right.
But like when it comes to playing Ohio State, their biggest rivalry that Jim Harbaugh has not had a great record on prior to the last couple of years, like that's a really interesting thing to think about.
The circumstantial evidence here isn't one that you should probably ignore. Could help frame the discussion in that before Connor Stalions arrived, and I know there's talk and conjecture that he was helping the program before he officially joined.
He wrote a manifesto.
But before he arrived and was a member of the staff, the record was not good. And afterwards, the record was good. And their worst season ever was a year that fans weren't allowed in the stands. Under Harbaugh. That was their worst year.
Yeah.
So
that is a great little tidbit. And again, like maybe this is not the humongous competitive advantage that Ohio State fans are saying it is. I don't know. Like we will never know that. But the years that they made the playoffs, if they were doing something that is like it is illegal to do, Other teams missed out on playoff opportunities because of it. So I think there's a legitimate gripe with the rest of the Big Ten, with the rest of the teams that they played against, with everyone else in college football. That doesn't mean that other teams aren't also doing it, but they didn't get caught.
You can find moments in college football history that might have splintered off of them cheating. Whether it be Michigan reaching out to teams, allegedly, to some of the reports, reaching out to the other teams that could affect their positioning in the college football playoff. They're trying to give them an advantage. TCU knowing about it, and TCU boat racing Michigan at the start of the game because Michigan had no idea that TCU knew about their sign stealing program, to Josh Gaddis's Broyles Award. Like, there's all these things. There's video evidence, and I know it's a passing down, and you could probably say edge pressure coming from whatever side, plain as day. But there is video of Connor Stalions with Gaddis and Jim Harbaugh looking to him for direction in the closing moments of the game, and Connor Stalions mouthing to both the coach and the OC, edge pressure here, and both of them hop on their headphones and change the call. That would seem to be a pretty cool advantage if you're trying to win games at all costs.
It seems like Connor Stalions should be the next Colts head coach, not Jim Harbaugh.
Replace Belichick?
Yes.
He's 2-7. Belichick is 2-7. Put it on the poll, Juju, at LeBatard Show. Should Connor Stalions replace Bill Belichick? One of the things that makes this very difficult is that none of us actually know how much of an advantage it got anybody. So all we can do is cluck and complain about it.
I love it.
Of all the rejections, Stugotz, from people complaining about us going to Hollywood to do some business. There was some business that had to be done in Hollywood. No complaints were louder than the ones directed at nobody wants to hear any more about horrifying climate facts of the day. They have turned on Adam McKay. They have turned on us. They've turned on us going to Hollywood, spending any money in Hollywood, doing business with Adam McKay, getting into business with Hyperobject. They are rejecting the fact that doom is impending. And there is no way to make horrifying climate facts of the day funny. It's very hard to do.
He's trying, man.
But it's difficult because at one point he calls me next to tears saying, did you know there are 6 hurricanes going on right now in different parts of the world, all at the same time? Mm-hmm. That doesn't normally happen. Look, he's laughing sinisterly.
Was he crying, though, for real?
I mean,
tears?
We had to hide his visage, $6.3 million in Hollywood, behind artificial intelligence because he doesn't want to be seen because he's afraid of bursting into tears. I'm not misrepresenting you here, correct, Adam?
No, we've had challenges with this segment. We brought in some high-paid consultants, very talented consultants from McKinsey, Bain. They did amazing work. They forged friendships with all of us. You didn't care for them. And they made a series of recommendations that I think your audience would really enjoy. And Dan rejected them.
I mean, Billy doesn't want to keep doing the segment. I'm going to just be honest.
That's not
here.
fair. Billy never said
We've
that.
never had this conversation.
Stugotz doesn't want to do it either.
That's
Stugotz
fair.
doesn't want to stop. He doesn't want it to be done anymore.
Have you guys even read the recommendations from the consultants?
No, we have not. I have not.
They're pretty good. I mean, the one idea is, and this was the one Dan rejected, is climate stat of the day and sex advice segment. And the idea would be really quick. We talk about, stuff's getting hotter. So how's it going in the bedroom? And then we take some callers and we help them with their sex life. And Dan was like, that makes no sense.
It's not the worst idea.
The McKinsey group showed him the analytics. So there were a lot of really exciting ideas that Dan rejected. So, yeah, I'm kind of handcuffed here. I'm trying to be a grown-up. Your audience wants juicy, greasy, tasty content. and Dan's making me give him granola.
It's not that. It's that it's heavy content, and it's hard to make light. Like you, and especially when you start talking, over people's heads sometimes with climate language that is common in your circles, but not necessarily common in ours.
Hardcore content, you would say?
That was a porn joke?
Well, because then there's
How
a
is
lane,
your
Dan.
sex life? Dan, how's it going in the boudoir?
It's been slow. Grief. Well, just grief.
Let's get into that. By the
Grief
way,
sex is great sex, though.
What?
Yeah.
What?
I'm just saying.
October, 1.7 degrees Celsius, hottest October in recorded history. But let's get back to you in the bedroom.
Let's play the climate stat, horrifying climate stat music of the day, please.
We're all gonna die.
This is the background music in my bedroom as I walk in.
Setting the mood.
Yeah, just dark,
The oceans are all burning.
brooding, sad, terrified, apocalyptic,
On the news and find
impotent.
out we're gonna die.
Impotent with grief.
Impotent.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah. What is the climate fact
All
of the
right.
day? What is the horrifying climate fact of the day? Really? Are we going to keep doing this with the bedroom? Because I hope you have better ideas than that from the McKinsey group.
We haven't tried that one yet.
We have a list of 20 ideas. Mike Ryan's the only one who's read through them all, and he liked them.
Okay.
All right. Climate stat of the day. How many days in a row has the northern hemisphere temperature broken the all-time record? Is it 130 days, 280 days, or 250 days?
It's a quiz now?
Is it some number much, much more than all three of those?
I'm going to go A, Adam.
I'll go B.
Yes! Isn't that good news?
Yeah, all right.
30 days. It's the lowest number. Now, men, women always have the pressure to put on some sort of costume in the bedroom. But why can't you dress up as a milkman, a pizza delivery guy?
Dan loves costumes.
Well, these guys accuse me all the time of liking costumes. What do you mean that's true,
Well, you
McKay? I do not like costumes.
Everyone
I
knows.
don't want costumes in the bedroom. I don't. I do.
Sure.
I do, however, an occasional lucha libre figure of some sort wearing a cape. Maybe sometimes. Just
How
wearing
did
a
that
cape.
go?
Nacho
Get into
Libre?
it.
How did it go? I mean, I'm stricken by grief. So
Really playing
So
this grief card up.
I mean, I just like I'm wearing a cape and I'm just sort of sad. I'm just sort of
But
sad
Dan,
all the time.
it was the lowest number of the three.
Yeah, that's good news, Dan.
Yeah.
Should make you happy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Billy.
I think this worked out. Tell the McKenzie group we're going to go with this one.
Mm-hmm.
this is the one we're going with.
McKinsey.
Oh,
Billy.
sorry.
It's a fine.
McKinsey.
Well,
Not cool.
McKay is trying to reach the Billies of the world. He's not having success. He asks me all the time, Billy, off air.
Yeah.
He's like, "How's this going over with Billy? Are we
With me?
reaching?
Who cares
Are
what
we
I think?
are we reaching him?"
Adam, I was at a bat protest this past weekend. You would have loved it. And I was actually kind of bothered by the fact that I got there. And I feel like I didn't last long, and I think that my carbon emissions getting there probably did more damage to the bats than good.
No. What was the protest?
Ron McGill wants to give the animals water slides or something, and then people are upset about
That's
it.
not what the protest is.
Has something to do with a water park and
Yeah.
bats.
I mean, it was framed weird. They're asking
you.
me, someone, to give my time to either bats or water slides. And I don't know what's brought you joy in your life more, bats or
Those are
water
the
slides.
Yeah, those are kind of the two choices. just in general.
The only two, right? You're right.
I was asking myself while I was considering going there, wait, which team am I really? Am I team bat or am I team water slide?
So you just didn't go.
I just did like 30 milligrams and stayed home and
I would have been
watched
in the
a
middle
hell of
of
a
the-
noon hour.
I would have gone middle of the road.
What a great noon slate that was.
There's also the added kind of thing where the water slides were voted for, so now we're just kind of overthrowing an election
But it
just
was
for
like-
funsies,
but
for
it was-
bats.
But it was like voted for like 6 years ago.
Yeah, and I heard that they also already did like all the tubing to get the water there, which seems like we spent a lot of money. We might as well get the slides, right?
So many carbons emitted. At this point, I'm good with the slides. I'm sorry.
At this point, if you're gonna have an apocalypse one way or the other, and you tell me what can I have, magical flumes or
Or
bats?
do I want to be swinging at bats and that are now around my home because they have been given free reign? Right. It actually sounds terrifying.
We're on the wrong side of this.
Yeah.
I just realized that we were at the
Team water
protest
slide.
on the wrong side because we did not. What is more fun than a water slide amusement park filled with mildew and feces and urine?
I mean, as if bats are clean.
And
Yeah,
bats.
like there's there's guano on top of all that. Dan, you happy?
What kind of bats?
It's an important question, Adam. What
was
kind of bats?
unclear. It was
There was like this 8-foot bat that I saw in Thailand somewhere go viral. I don't want that kind of bat. I got enough problems. You remind me of all my problems every time you come on this show. Now I'm adding bats to the fray. No thanks.
Bats are.
How's the bedroom, Mikey?
Oh, there we go.
Dan, you might like this is a full circle thing because we were talking about your grief. The first time I met your brother and had a conversation with him was at a Thanksgiving at Dan's apartment that I thought was going to be like the LeBatard Thanksgivings were like very famous. I was like, wow, I got invited to this. It was like one of my first years. And this was the first year they didn't do the big Thanksgiving. And it was just Dan's apartment with his immediate family. And I was like, why am I here? So we sit down at the Thanksgiving table. I meet Dave for like the first time. And the first thing he says as we're having Thanksgiving dinner, he looks at me, he's like, this your girlfriend? I'm like, yeah. And I introduce her, he's like, how often do you guys have sex? And I was like,
that's
okay.
my brother.
Yep.
Was
all
Dan,
that tracks. All that tracks.
was Dan dressed as a turkey?
Pilgrim that year.
I was
The first interaction.
He was dressed as the cornucopia.
the Coca-Cola. See you later, Adam. Good talking to you.
Bye.
I think we improved that
Yeah,
segment.
he saved it. Yeah.
And I think I've totally rethought my voting position from 6 years ago.
Totally worth it for the McKinsey group.
Mike Ryan spent 2 hours in Hollywood pantomiming with his mouth that AI figure that cost $6.3 million. He had committed to doing 2 more hours and it didn't work. None of it worked.
None of it. Like we put a lot of sweat equity into making those segments work in Los Angeles, and it just seemed like you guys hated it even more, and it made Dan emotionally break down in a segment that we recorded later. All would have been fine if Dan just avoided talking about the Philadelphia Phillies.
Billy, at this point in the day, Stugotz is taking off his headset. He's a bit delirious.
Oh, I'm tired,
God
man.
bless football. He's tired. This is the beginning of the week.
Post games too.
Yeah, it's the
me
beginning of
But
the
you get a
week.
top 5 ready.
I will.
And he's just starting his week, but he's complaining about being tired 90 minutes into his week.
Cheaters.
Billy, why should God bless football be listened to today?
Because you like us.
That's why. Yep.
Yeah,
Please.
Hey, resubscribe. And subscribe to our YouTube page because we brought back the club for you as a YouTube exclusive, and I need you to justify it. So subscribe. YouTube.com/@LeBatardShow, please.
We brought back the club?